Welcome to Wide Angle this week. We changed tracks a little bit from our focus on foreign and security policy to talk about domestic politics. The BJP National Executive has met in Delhi this week. The focus once again on the next round of assembly elections. How will they spin the economic distress that seems to be becoming the big story? How will the opposition rally itself, if at all they will? To discuss all this, I'm being joined by Prashant Jha, who has just written this new book called How the BJP Wins, Inside India's Greatest Election Machine, I think, to give us some insight on what we can expect in terms of strategy. Also, The Wire's founding editor, M.K. Venu, to help us break down some of these arguments as well. Prashant, but your book, I mean, you talk about the ground reporting you've encountered over the last 3 years, particularly since the BJP has come to power, looking at the UP election. The narrative of demonetization is what you started with talking about. While everybody was reporting stories of distress, stories of anger, you kept saying there's another story out there and people need to pay attention on how this is being converted into a brand building exercise really for the BJP. The National Executive in Delhi this week seems to be dismissing those stories of anger as well and focusing on the PR and brand imaging once again. Tell us how you think the BJP is going to win the next round of assembly elections.
So Maya, thank you for having me. I'll begin with talking about demonetization and why it was important for BJP to reinvent Prime Minister Modi's brand. 2015 was an important year for the BJP. This was a year which began with the Delhi debacle. It ended with the Bihar humiliation. This was the year when, because of the amendments they had proposed to the Land Acquisition Act, BJP came across looking at pro-corporate. This was the year when Rahul Gandhi threw his Soot Boot Ki Sarkar jibe. And the BJP realized that they may again be confined to the image of being an urban, upper middle class, pro-rich party. And the Prime Minister then went in for a reinvention of an image, and this was a conscious move. The narrative around demonetization was to precisely cater to this, and you had this projection of the honest poor fighting the poor, the corrupt rich, and the Prime Minister waging this battle for the honest poor. And when I was traveling in UP in December of last year, one could see that despite inconvenience, there was support for this move, and I think that was able to carry the BJP through till the UP elections. The enthusiasm for demonetization moved to indifference by the end of it, but not to hostility. Now, what we are seeing now is that with the data that demonetization that has come out, a lot of the money has come back, the tangible benefits that the poor were expecting have not materialized. We also have economic GDP data and the sense that jobs have not been created. So BJP will have to look, and I think there is a realization both in the party and in the government that if Modi had been a Hindu leader from 2002 and 7, became a Vikas Purush from 7 to 15, then became a Garibo ka Neta while retaining those two images from 15 to 17, there is a need for another reinvention of image. And I don't know what BJP is going to do next, but what is clear is the realization that they will need something else to sustain them for the next round of elections leading up to 2019. But my final point is just about the immediate set of elections that we are going to see, particularly in Gujarat and Himachal at the end of the year. I think BJP is relatively comfortably placed in both. I think the challenge will be in Karnataka next year and then the set of elections that happen at the end of next year.
All right. You're saying they're comfortably placed in some of these elections going forward, and clearly if you look at the kind of messaging from the National Executive, they've hit out at Rahul Gandhi for dynasty politics. They've talked about winning the sort of PR war, or at least the strategic war, diplomatic war on Doklam with the Chinese. There's an unwillingness to acknowledge the economic situation, even though anecdotally reports come in every day. You've also talked about how in this book, the BJP knows what's happening in a sense, has a pulse on the ground, and is using whatever tools it can at its disposal. So whether it means consolidating caste in one place to tackle these perceptions, whether it means polarizing on the basis of religion in other places, you're actually saying that they're not willing to stop at anything. They will not stop at anything.
No, I think that BJP deploys, like any party should, a set of strategies to win elections, right? Winnability is key for them, and both Modi and Amit Shah, and this is interesting about them, have always used power to expand power. They have not let power diminish power, and so the normal rules of anti-incumbency have usually not worked with them. Now, when you talk about caste, I think this is a major change that has happened in BJP. Whether it is a fundamental, irreversible change is still to be seen. But I would argue BJP today is an inclusive Hindu party. It used to be an upper caste party that relied on a narrow set of supporters. Today, it is making a conscious attempt to co-opt specific OBC subcastes, co-opt specific Dalit subcastes, and create coalitions of the most visible castes, the upper caste, with the most invisible castes who have higher aspirations but who have not benefited as much and who have not got enough political power post Mandal, right? So I think this is a change in the BJP, and we often confine ourselves to that stereotype of seeing the BJP only as an upper caste party. I don't think that's completely true anymore. But I'm again, the caveat that I would add is that there is still a tension within the BJP between its core upper caste conservative leadership and base, as well as the new recruits who will seek space in the power structure, and who will not be satisfied with tokenism. So if that is one set of strategies that they are deploying, the other is the communal polarization that they do. And there is absolutely no doubt that BJP stokes hatred on the ground, that BJP sets out to make the Hindu anxious, to make the Hindu bitter, to make the Hindu angry, to make the Hindu feel that, to make the Hindu resentful of the Muslims, and to make all other parties, project all other parties as pandering only to Muslims. So this narrative of appeasement that they carve out, this low level, sometimes riots, but often low intensity tensions that you see on the ground, particularly in the UP elections that we see, are all a part of a deliberate design of the BJP to consolidate the Hindu vote. What allows this to happen and what enables this to happen, and this is where I make a provocative argument, is that secularism is dead. Because this seems to have, the politics of secularism seems to have no resonance. In all my travels, I did not meet Hindu voters of other parties, of non-BJP parties, saying that they are voting for these parties because of secularism, right? The secular communal binary is not something that is dictating voting preferences for Hindu voters. And that is, I think, the challenge for the opposition parties and how they're going to reinvent themselves.
Right. Venu, coming to this point, Prashant argues it very well in the book. He talks about how the BJP has managed to juxtapose three things: development, nationalism, and a sense of fear into, I think those were your words if I'm not mistaken, to basically create this sense of Hindu unity, and the nationalism and the fear feeding into this narrative of the Muslim as the other. This is dangerous, but as he's also saying that the secularism versus non-secular binary doesn't seem to be playing out on the ground. How then, in a country like India, do you challenge something like this? How do you address this issue of polarization?
See, the only way the non-BJP parties can move away from or divert or radicalize or whatever you may say, move the voters to another kind of politics is, in my view, to focus on economics. It's not for nothing. Somebody said it's the economy,
Bill Clinton is the economy stupid.
Yeah. So I largely agree with what Prashant said. BJP has managed to fuse Mandal with Kamandal, which is they've played the Hindutva politics, and they've also used Modi's status as a backward caste and played an underlying Mandal backward politics also, and they have succeeded to a great extent in the Hindi belt. So today I separate this entire book, this Modi Amit Shah machinery, their social engineering as well as their administrative machinery with the help of RSS, it's working beautifully in the Hindi belt. That's why you will see all the mob lynching, beef related violence, 99% focused
in these areas
around the Hindi belt, UP, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, Bihar, so I think they've ring fenced this area where Hindutva nationalism and Mandal Kamandal will work. It's still working in my view, but where I think the BJP is still a bit shaky is in their larger objective to make a foray into the larger eastern belt, south, where this politics need not be working. It's working in the Hindi belt and in Gujarat, right?
Right.
Gujarat was the first laboratory. They're trying to do in coastal Karnataka. Still, Karnataka, they haven't got a full hold over Karnataka. So, if you take the Hindi belt in Gujarat, these 7 states, together they have about 200, I think, 50 Lok Sabha seats. So, their focus will remain
On these states.
These states, and I think Prashant's book pretty much explains their strategy in the cow belt. Even so, I mean, if he doesn't deliver, he's right. Demonetization. I was also in UP, and people were saying that Modi is is hurting the rich, and this rich versus poor narrative was working.
Was a powerful one as well on the ground, yeah.
But economics works in different ways as time passes. So now the kind of destruction that has happened in the informal economy, employment not coming back, which now Sangh Parivar, their own ideologues like Gurumurthy is now admitting.
In fact, is admitting, right.
That all these things together, demonetization, GST together, Gurumurthy has said is come as a shock to commerce in general, and he's saying that economy is sinking.
In fact, Prashant, that's the one thing.
So how will they overcome this?
Right, that's the one thing you also talk about, because I mean there's a couple of things which you say has also led to the BJP becoming this great election machine. One, of course, is the organizational input that Amit Shah himself has led as far as the block level, district level member of the party is concerned. The second is, I mean, the opposition just has not been able to catch up on this game. Either they're not as media savvy or organizationally savvy or politically savvy, perhaps, for want of a better way of phrasing it as well. To be in a situation where, as Venu is pointing out, even the BJP's own ideologues are pointing to an economic situation that's not exactly looking very bright. Why is it we're not seeing, in the face of this machine, the opposition taking some cues from them, perhaps?
So, I'll say 3 things. One is that the organizational machinery is formidable today, and what Amit Shah has done is both a quantitative expansion of the membership base. We dismissed the membership campaign as something that was not serious when he unleashed it, but going back to the ground, what I discovered was that there is a quantitative expansion, and that in turn transformed the quality of the relationship of the party high command with the members on the ground, because there was so much contact with the booth level committee through even non-election periods. So, when elections came, these were not dormant units which suddenly had to become active. These were units which had been in operation, they had been in constant contact with people on the ground, and they had a pulse of what was going on, right. So, I think this is, it's important to first understand what BJP did in terms of organization before we come to the opposition. I think the opposition, I think there are 2 ways to understand this. The first is the Congress, right, and I think Rahul Gandhi has a problem, despite the image reinvention or the early contours of which we may have seen last week after his US trip. I think there are 3 or 4 key issues Rahul Gandhi confronts. The first is that he does not seem to be speaking to any social base. Now, this was an advantage that Nehru, Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi had. They were not associated with any region, any religion, any class, any caste. They were national leaders. Rahul till now does not have that national appeal and has still not been able to identify which are the core constituencies he is speaking to. Is he speaking to the upper caste? Is he speaking to the youth? Is he speaking to the Dalit? Is he speaking to the trader? Is he speaking to the corporate who is today unhappy with BJP? Is he speaking to the small businessman? So, I think there is he has to construct a multi-class alliance, but through identifying core social constituencies. The second is organization. There I would give Congress a little bit of benefit of doubt that Congress is a mass-based party, unlike BJP, which is a cadre-based party and which has a history of emphasis on the Sangathan and has the Sangh's backing. But despite that, the fact is that there is no excuse for the kind of rotten organizational state that the Congress is in today. And Rahul Gandhi cannot blame this on only the old guard. I mean, this is his party. He has been in charge he's been around for 13 years.
Right.
The 2 experiments that he has had in Youth Congress and NSUI have not gone very well. The third, I think, is that his ability to communicate is very limited. I mean, or at least people who meet him privately say he's focused and intelligent and can be, but we still do not see that publicly, right? And the fourth is his public record. People still ask, what has he done? And I think that question he has not been able to answer. Are there schemes that that he was instrumental in designing during UPA 2? He has not taken any credit for it. People don't know what he has done. So I think on the Congress you have this problem of leadership, and on the broader alliance, the opposition, there could be an index of a higher index of opposition unity can challenge the BJP. But there again, you will have three problems. Who's going to lead it? Yeah. Will it be the Congress? And or will you go leaderless, facing a man like Modi, who will make it presidential yet again? What is going to be the agenda? Is it going to be just remove Modi, or will there be a common narrative on the economy? Will the CPM and the Congress and the Trinamool, all of them have a common narrative on the economy?
Well, right? I think that's an interesting question as well, because every day you wake up to stories in the newspapers on economic distress, whether it's in the agricultural sector, whether it's in the IT sector, whether it's handloom weavers. There's stories that abound. I mean, construction labor. How do you think the opposition is going to channelize this? Because also what happened, say for example in Bihar, when the opposition did manage to channelize some sort of anti-vote, I suppose, towards the BJP, today that result really doesn't make a difference, because you've had the combination change.
Yeah, I want to say something, Maya, here. Recently the Telegraph carried a front page story, the leading Calcutta paper, where it quoted some top RSS leaders as expressing serious worry about where the economy is headed, where employment, farmers' distress, and this RSS leader seemed to suggest, which I found very interesting, seemed to suggest that the suggestion was a kind of warning to the BJP that he said, just remember in 2004, Vajpayee was a popular leader, but the performance of the government left a lot to be desired. So you had a combination of a leader who was still popular, and by all ratings there was nobody opposite Vajpayee. Congress didn't have a prime ministerial candidate, so he was kind of hinting to the RSS leader that you could face a similar situation if you don't fix the economy. Now, I don't know what Prashant might have to say on that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because the India Shining campaign in 2004, for example, everyone thought that it was going to
I've been hearing that
BJP.
That Pramod Mahajan was the key guy who ran the India Shining campaign.
So what have you been hearing on something like this? Because the situation has changed on the economic front from 2014.
And by the way, BJP has always had very strong organizational machinery. That, of course, Amit Shah has come and enhanced it further, but it was never lacking for an organizational kind of.
So
I think the 2004 memory continues to haunt the BJP. They are all very conscious of the fact that despite being popular, despite thinking they have the edge, that they lost that election, and they were then in hibernation for 10 years. So I think the BJP leadership is very conscious of that whenever you talk to them. Now, what has changed since then? I think the first is that, I mean, at the moment, and that's why I think 2019 is an open game. It's too early to call an election 1.5 years early, but at the moment Modi's popularity is still intact, and there is faith in the intent and integrity of the leader. And I was in Bihar 2 weeks ago, and I went to 6 districts, and wherever I went and I asked people what they thought of Modi, they did not have a specific tangible reason about why they supported him. They could not offer a reason about what he had done, yet they felt they nahi acha kaam kar rahe hain. So we support. So I think that is different.
So he has won the perception
I think he still has the perception.
I think he's still strong on intent.
He's still strong on intent, and I think integrity also. The corruption narrative that he will have will still be, and people have been joking about it, that he will go into the next elections fighting on the corruption of the opposition leaders, right? So in 2019 he will still have that I ran a clean government image, unless there is something that breaks out about in the next few years. The second is that, I think the coordination between the BJP leadership and the RSS was a lot weaker in 2004.
Than it is
the
today.
RSS, I think, to some extent even went inert in 2004. Today, I think the RSS is completely on board with the government, and there is a strong degree of synergy because of a range of reasons that I describe in the book, because of the personal dynamic between the Sarsang Chalak, because of ideological convergence, close coordination,
similar age group also.
Similar age group. So there is, so it's very different from the Atalji and Sudarshan combination. So I think the Sangh is still on board, and these warning signals are meant to alert the BJP. I don't think it is yet meant to undermine the BJP. And I think
that you better buck up ahead of 2019, because the economy has got to be your focus. In fact, in the national executive, there has been talk about ways to revive the economy as well, without coming out clearly and saying that there is a problem.
There is, and I think the two challenges for the BJP on that note are maintaining, as I keep saying, the multi-class alliance, right? In this expansion of the base to the poor, we can have a debate on whether they have done anything tangible for the poor. Are their original constituents, the middle class, the small trader and the corporates, today unhappy? And
I think the farmers are the unhappiest lot today. So the farmers could break that unity that they
the
had.
class.
The
second is the caste contradictions also. It's a very wide social coalition they have built. In a state like UP, you got votes of everybody, including OBCs and Dalits, and then today there is a sense that there is return of upper caste hegemony because of, Thakur Chief Minister, many cabinet positions, SP positions going to upper caste. So maintaining this wide class alliance and maintaining this wide caste alliance, this is going to be the core challenge for BJP in 2019.
I met Akhilesh Yadav a few months after the UP elections. Where he, for the first time, he met a few, 2-3 editors, and he privately admitted that the bigger cause for his defeat, and a bad one at that, at the UP elections, was the huge anti-Yadav feeling during the election, where people felt, especially the OBCs, felt that the entire administration got Yadavized, SHOs, everywhere Yadav.
In fact, this is what he is talking about, consolidating unity around caste.
So I'm very mixed about, I have mixed feelings about what were the real causes for the big UP win for the BJP, because BJP itself was not so confident before the election about demonetization. They kept underplaying demonetization. If you remember, until the middle of the elections, he was not talking about demonetization.
Can I just take
after winning, they said, this also went in our favor.
I think, in fact, that's a good point. I want you to take on that very point about the Yadavs voting for Yadavs, the different castes voting on those lines.
I think what the BJP has recognized, and Amit Shah in that sense has been a very good sociologist of North India. Mandal led to the empowerment of certain castes. But what you have are very plural societies in UP or in other pockets, where you have the socially dominant but politically marginalized upper castes, and then you have the socially and politically marginalized OBC subcastes and Dalit subcastes, who may not have got the benefits that Mandal unleashed for say Yadavs or even for Jatavs to a certain extent, because when Mayawati comes to power, the Jatavs benefit. The BJP has been able to construct these wide coalitions against the dominant political caste. It's the Yadavs in UP, it's the Jats in Haryana, it's the Marathas in Maharashtra. So you get everybody but that dominant caste, because there is resentment against that dominant caste for having benefited for so long and monopolizing state.
He's right. So but the question is, how durable is this coalition?
That is going to be a challenge for them.
That's a big question now.
And whether the opposition parties are going to do enough to tap into this contradiction. See, what in Bihar you had the same contradiction, right? Yadavs and other OBCs were at loggerheads. Nitish Kumar walked out. He capitalized on the non-Yadav base. The BJP earlier allied with it. Lalu then allied with it.
Prashant, two questions based on this. One is that we've established that your book essentially focuses on a lot of North India, large swaths of North India, where this machinery has worked on the ground and where the BJP hopes it will continue to. So Rajasthan,
where social engineering and the other
Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh,
I have a chapter on the North East, but I'll talk about it once you ask.
But what I want to ask you is, what happens in other parts of the country? That's one of them. And the second is, while we're talking about this, we've completely kind of forgotten about the other narrative that's taking place in the country, which is on religious polarization. Is it going to be a factor for the BJP going forward into the campaign? Is it going to be a factor for the opposition, or is it so irrelevant today that no one should make it a factor?
So on the first question, I mean, the book does have a chapter on looking beyond the heartland, where I look at briefly at Jammu, but also at the northeast. And BJP realized right after 2014 that they peaked in the north and the west, and that's why to replicate the kind of performance that they had, they need to expand in the south and the east. So in the northeast particularly, the BJP has worked very hard, building on the decades of work that RSS has done, and they have won Assam, they have won Manipur, and what I could pick, the broad strands that I could pick of the strategy there is co-opt existing political elites. So these are places where BJP's own organization is weak, the leadership is not present. So pick up a Himanta Biswa Sarma and use him. Pick up an N. Biren Singh in Manipur, who used to be a Congress leader, and today he is the only ex-Congress leader who is a BJP chief minister. Right. One is that. The second is dilute. The second is dilute your ideological core. So there, in these pockets, they don't talk about beef. Right. Where there is a paradox where they talk about it in North India, and there may be a trade-off at some point. The belligerent politics in North India may cost them support there, but at the moment they have consciously toned down their ideological cultural agenda in northeast. The third is adapting to specific realities. In Manipur, they became the party of civil liberties. They were alleging that the Congress, under Congress rule, there have been 1528 extrajudicial encounters, and they were demanding an investigation into it. They gave tickets to Christian MLAs who then went around campaigning and saying that Bharatiya Janata Party is actually the Bharatiya Jesus Party. So I'm just saying there is an adaptability to BJP, a dilution of the core in other. Now, whether this expansion will continue, the South, I think, poses serious challenges to them. Tamil Nadu, despite all their efforts to fragment AIADMK, is still not looking good for them.
Well, they worked very hard in the Kerala elections as well in the last round.
So it is an area where they are working hard, but success, I think, is still some time away.
There is an arithmetic challenge, which I'm sure Prashant would agree with. If you take the bulk of the BJP seats, more than 90% of the seats have come from the 5-6 Hindi heartland states, South Belt, and you add Gujarat to it, even there more than 90% of the seats. So they have actually maxed out in these states, and these are the big number states, and what they lose here. Suppose they lose from, instead of 90, they get say 75% of the seats, still doing very well, but they lose 50%, 15%. Will they make up that in the southeast is a big question.
Other question. I mean, talking about the sort of invincibility of this election machine, in the last round of assembly elections, what we saw in Goa, for example, was not that the BJP had done well for itself, it's just that the others didn't get their act together.
Actually, I'm very careful in this book, and I do not suggest that the BJP machine is invincible. I have looked at past elections and look at their current dominance, but this is a very, very competitive polity. There are real tensions within this polity at the moment, and there is a vibrant opposition even now. So I am not suggesting they are invincible. And as I the economic performance, the multi-class alliance that I talked about, whether they are able to maintain that, the caste contradictions, the trade-off, and we can talk about that a little more, the trade-off between belligerent majoritarian politics and the inclusive governance agenda. I mean, can you have a strategy which rests on Hindu consolidation in terms of elections and have sabka saath, sabka vikas in terms of governance? Or is there a tension there? And then the state of the opposition. All of this will determine their future, and I think that the two men who know 2019 is not a done deal are Narendra Modi and Amit Shah.
Which is why I asked you the question on the issue of polarization, because when you can be talking about electricity for all, whether it's Eid or Diwali, the fact that you've chosen those examples, whether you talk about resources for Shamshan or Kabristan, yes, on the surface they're non-controversial, they're talking about equal opportunity, equal access, but if you take those in a context, then the meaning changes.
Absolutely. If you just look at the text of the speech, and I went and heard that speech 4 times and I've written about it in the book, that speech is unexceptional. It talks about the constitutional duty of the state and the need for non-discrimination. But if you place that speech in context, there is nothing that is different in what Narendra Modi is saying and what a Sangeet Som is saying in Sardana. They are all trying to make the Hindu anxious, resentful, and suggesting that a political party is that other political parties are catering only to minorities, which is what Amit Shah did with, say, Kasab, right?
Right.
Or when he suggested that there is discrimination on the basis of religion in distribution of laptops, which is
Right.
false. And a lot of the communal propaganda is just false. It's just lies, because we know that there is no conscious effort to enable the supply of electricity during Eid and obstruct it during Diwali. I don't think facts bore that out. But the Prime Minister still said it. What I think all of this shows is that the BJP will use this as a tactic. And when they feel that this tactic pays dividends or other strategies are not working, they will sharpen it. And in the run up to 2019, I would expect that they would still use nationalism, they would use communal polarization, and I would keep an eye out for the Ram Janmabhoomi hearing that's gone to the judiciary, while also trying to sharpen welfare delivery, which they have done to a certain extent.
Because
and
that
project-
offsets the polarization debate and the narrative that
it's a complex dish where you have many ingredients. You manage a broadcast alliance, you talk about your welfare, you talk about the fact that you've given clean governance, and you also do this. So these cannot be compartmentalized.
But in all this, Venu, we come back to the one final point, and I think which nobody really has an idea of which way it will go, which is the state of the economy right now. So while all these factors will play their role and are things that are being discussed every day or not, as the case may be, do you think the next election, whether it's assembly or general, will rest on the economy, or will it rest on all these other socio-political issues that Prashant has also talked about in the book?
See, I have a very clear thought on this. If this government does not fix the problem of the farmers, today there are multiple movements around happening. These are not sort of organized farmers movement, but leaders in different states. And the message has gone down to the farmers that Mr. Modi had promised us 50% profit over our costs, or doubling of subsequently doubling of our income by 2022. And if Modi does not deliver that, I think he's in trouble, because the farming community, they cut across all castes, so it will break their caste coalition. If the farmers are not made happy, in the sense that if they don't feel convinced that what this man promised, he's delivering.
Right. And I think also 2022 seems to indicate that they're expecting to come back in 2019. But as you're saying, in this book, you don't make the claim that everything's done and dusted right now. There could be different sets of circumstances between now and the next general election. I think
I think the suggestion of 2022 is a part of the election campaign. It is to project the inevitability of victory.
Yeah.
You want to show to the voter that we are winning in 2019.
Right.
That itself is construction of the hawa, which BJP is so good at.
In a way, he's already telling these constituencies that give me 2 more years, I may be able to do 3 more years, I may be able to do what I'm
doing.
So I think the question really is just the way the demonetization narrative was spun into a PR brand building, image building, consolidation around Narendra Modi as the face of the UP election. There was no chief ministerial face actually, and it took a lot of people by surprise. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to be able to use this current scenario and say, give us a few more years to make things better. And that's the election machine that I think you're talking about. So it's already in 5th gear. Clearly, the National Executive has indicated that it is 18 months to go for the next general elections, and this debate will only pick up. Prashant Jha, thanks very much for being on Wide Angle. M.K. Venu, thank you so much for your insights as always. That's it on the show this week.